Nothing so far in the journal, although we've got an issue coming out in August on this, on what I've called naturalistic studies of real readers. That would be readers in natural environment engaged in habitual reading behaviour rather than experimental contexts. You do get this focus in a history of reading, or history of the book for that matter, and you get it in contemporary ethnographic studies. And I've given you a little quotation from Elizabeth Long's work on reading groups there, where she's seeing reading as subject to social institutional determinants of what's available to read, what's worth reading, and how to read it. So a more contextualised approach there, Long is looking at actual, real readers in ethnographic study. So if you do want to look at real readers then, what do you use as evidence for that? You can survey readers with questionnaires. If you're a historian, you can look at diary evidence, autobiographies, marginalia, or you can do what we did and just observe them, so get a natural group of readers together and look at what they do. And that's what we did in that reading group study. So just a little bit on the study itself. And I want to look at what a discursive approach can bring to an understanding of literary reading. So the study then, we worked with 16 face-to-face reading groups. We couldn't be representative with a small number like that, so we went with diversity instead. So we had groups from lowlands of Scotland down to the south coast of England and points in between. We had groups that were all female, all male, and mixed. There were more female readers overall, as you get in a national sample. A mix of ages, met in different contexts, so members' houses, we had a prison group, a school group, a workplace group, a library group, 2 bookshop groups, and a knitting shop group, so, and again a gay bar group as well. So quite a diversity of meeting contexts and different relationships between readers, obviously obtaining in all of those contexts. 2 online groups, but I'm talking more about the face-to-face groups today. Data, we audio recorded, we couldn't video record because it would have been too intrusive, so we audio recorded spoken interaction, 2 meetings in each case. We observed the meetings and took field notes. We talked to people about their reading. Critical texts are things like published reviews, academic discourse on books that were being read, and other texts means things like one group had a newsletter, others had websites, some wrote up their own reviews of books, and all of those were texts that we collected together as part of our data set. I'll say more about methods later on, but just to come on to questions. We had several questions, obviously, to look at. I'm going to focus on 2 today, given the subject of the conference. I'd look at how readings are constructed in discourse, how they're justified, how ideas are developed between participants as a collaborative process, and how this kind of critical work is interwoven with all of the other stuff you have to do as you talk, so all the social, interpersonal, and affective demands of everyday group interaction. I'll just play you one example. The example is on your handout. It's not the first, I thought that was a bit too long, so it's the second one, starting on page 5. This, sorry, this is the next one, sorry. It's called the South Coast, the Orderly Cooling Building. There's a rough transcript on the PowerPoint, and if you want to look at the more detailed transcript in the handout. Just to give you some context, this used to be an all-male group who met in a pub. It was 4 friends who'd been chatting together in a pub on Friday evenings for 20 years. They began to introduce the book just to give some focus to the discussion. And before we began recording, 3 of their partners began coming along, so it suddenly became a mixed-sex group of 7 people from a group of 4, all men. It's in a pub, it's on a tiny table in the corner of the room by the door. They're squeezed around the table. The table's full of glasses and there's beer spilling all over the place, there's crisps and everything around. People are milling about saying hi and everything, so multiple floors developing throughout the discussion. Often a bit hard to hear. So quite a complex discursive practice then going on here. And I'm going to play a recording. It is lousy, because there's distortion because of the nature of the venue. So that illustrates how we have to analyse awful data sometimes. But anyway, quite interesting, I think. If you want to look at the transcript and follow the discourse through, let's focus on speaker R and what he's doing in the discourse, in the discussion. So they're talking about corruption in the Jacobean building and how that's depicted by the author. So, there we go.
The Quran says you can have an abortion if I twist the rules a bit. And it's entirely cynical. And you wonder if Allah al-Aswani is a Christian name. Al-Aswani means coming from Aswan. But I don't know. Yes, he's going to. But if he's a Christian, it puts a different light on it, doesn't it? I don't know if he's Christian. It's not allowed. No, it's a different L and it's a different H. There's no H. And Al-Aswani means the person who comes from Aswan. So it's not. Yeah, but I just wonder if he himself is a Christian.
Does anybody know how it's
He's a dentist, but he's a Christian. He could be a Coptic dentist. The Copts come from all over regions.
It took me weeks to transcribe that the whole conversation because of the distortion and the general mess. Anyway, what you've got here, I wanted to look about how the topic of is the author a Christian, how that became topicalized and developed during this little extract. So they're first of all discussing corruption in Egyptian society and religious life as part of that. And Speaker R wonders if the author's a Christian, and that's why he's depicting corruption in this particular way in Islamic life in Egypt. So that's Speaker R's first turn in this extract. He then gets dragged across to other topics where the author comes from. He comes from Aswan and so on. It's a by-handed Scrabble. It's a funny spelling of Allah. No, it's not Allah. It's a different R. It's a different L and so on and so on. He's a genuine person, yes, and so on and so on. He's a dentist, but is he a Christian? So what's happening here, Speaker R has lived in Egypt for a while, worked in Egypt for a while, and he therefore has special expertise just for this particular interaction. And that gets appealed to by the speakers, and that's why he's called across and goes across to their topics, while also trying to further his own topic of, is the author a Christian? It's a bit hard to see in that sequential transcript, so I've retranscribed it, and this is also on the handout. On the handout, the green text is bold and the blue text is plain text. What I've done is to put all the is the author a Christian stuff on the left-hand side, any other topic on the right-hand side. Speaker R's talk is green, any other speaker is blue. So it gives you just a visual image of how the talk is constructed. In this case, you can see Speaker R ploughing a lonely furrow on the left here, is the author a Christian, hopping across to the right-hand column to answer other people's questions about the author. And finally, towards the end of the extract, getting some support, some blue support there from other speakers. And after this, is the author a Christian topic gets developed and just discussed as a topic in its own right by all participants in the discussion. So it showed to me the complexity of how ordinary people talk about books when they're discussing readings on the hoof. So in this case, you're getting parallel topic development, Speaker R, so topic hopping back and forwards across. Drawing on resources, Speaker R's expertise, and one person talking about is the author a dentist. That comes from an introduction to the book they've got in front of them. So drawing on the resources too to interpret the text. Lots of interactional support. You might have heard all the ums and ers and things there, overlapping speech, and Speaker R's own support for other speakers in answering their questions. With a little bit of humour there, I see a Coptic dentist. It's quite a humorous interaction. There's jokes and joke-telling elsewhere in the introduction too. Humor's an important way of managing relationships in this and in other interactions. So the whole thing then is rooted in context, and I would say also highly creative, as people create interpretations in the light of the affordances and constraints of this kind of informal talk. I think I've got time to show you one more example.